And good evening, you blithering idiots. Welcome to another episode of the Not Acceptable, aka NA podcast. My name is Phy. I'm joined by Dat Paladin on the Paladin's Alliance channel or twitch.tv/Phy, wherever you're watching this one from. And well, we got some stuff to dig into here, Pally. What's going on?
Hey, Tier 1 CS is back. The open qualifiers in full swing. We've gotten a lot of Counter-Strike in the last couple of weeks. I mean, we are finally back live as well. Like, great time to be a Counter-Strike fan. And I'm excited to just basically recap what we've watched over the last week and whether or not we can actually contextualize anything from the number of BO1s that we've gotten. So let's get underway with these columns.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move it right on along as we'll go ahead and jump into our first one. We already have our question on screen, and that is, has the Blast format ruined this current state of affairs? We'll set our timer up for approximately 15 minutes as we get right on rolling into the show. And the first things first, though, here, Paladin, and that is, a lot of people have complained about the best of one format and how confusing this darn thing is. First things first, you have a best of one group stage that apparently means nothing as you jump into a gauntlet stage of best of threes that just, it's, to the average viewer, it feels like it doesn't make sense. Does this ruin the whole experience? We're coming back off the player break and this is our first taste of tier one.
Yeah, I feel like this is a great precursor question before we start getting into all these teams and all of the results that have gone underway. It's a good setting to literally contextualize what we've actually witnessed. And look, these are all seeding games. They're all best of one games. And when the pressure isn't necessarily on for these teams, we might get a completely different like just cohesiveness from some of these teams, and individuals might not necessarily be completely getting the ball rolling because they don't have that fire under their ass that they have to qualify for this next stage.
Right.
That being one thing, and then the other thing also being that, hey, like, these are best of ones, and that in and of itself is always going to be a little bit of a coin toss here or there. Obviously, there are some huge margins of error with like ages with like teams like EG. Like, that's obviously going to be very like the distance in how good these teams are will be apparent. But when you have other teams like FaZe and Heroic and Heroic coming out on top, it might be a little bit more of a you might have to take a little bit more of a grain of salt.
Okay, so I have my opinion on this. It's not as negative as I tried to characterize it to be, because we have to put this in the context. We're coming off of this player break where teams are not necessarily at their tip-top shape to start competing, and I think Blast recognized this in a way. There are a couple of benefits to this best of one system that Blast have always ran. For the average viewer, if you're watching this podcast, I'd like to consider you're part of the club here of these hardcore Counter-Strike viewers. We watch everything, we gobble this stuff up, we watch it every day. It's part of our life, right? But for the average viewer, just tuning into a Twitch stream, they don't have to get so invested into this long-winded BO3, and they have to try and familiarize themselves with all the storylines and all that stuff. It feels like this is much more bite-sized, much more pocketed for the average viewer. Sponsors like it because you get more ad time. That's simple as that. Blast like it. It's a shorter day. But the biggest thing is you're playing seeding matches coming right off of the player break, and I think that just makes the most sense. Why would you play the most high-stakes games for these teams? I know the competition, it's always going to come with the asterisk. It's always going to come with that BO1 asterisk. But the biggest thing with these teams is you're playing that seeding match. You're getting, the idea of what you want from these teams, but it's not all over for these teams. That's what I really want to, that's why I'm not saying it's the best format, but there's reasons why this BO1 format's reasonable. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I think you could definitely make a case for it. It's just when I've seen the graphics for some of these tournaments and then what they show the future of
Okay.
the tournament to be and what has already happened, that kind of gives me a little bit of a headache. And I think for us, again, as seasoned viewers, it'd be a little easier to navigate because we've done this rigmarole at least once, right? But if you are a new viewer and you want to jump in at the start of a new season or a start of a new circuit, when you hear, oh, when I hear about CS, I've heard that Blast is the best tournament to follow, so I want to get into the circuit right now.
Sure.
And you look at just the wide expanse of 3 different groups, 3 different gauntlets, 3 different gauntlets in those gauntlets. Like,
Sure.
it's just, I think it can be a little stressful in that regard. But I think the best of one thing should be noted when we talk about these teams. It is still very early doors, and we have to keep that in mind when we actually contextualize these. So let's actually get into some of the results that have happened so far and talk about Astralis. It's probably going to be the thumbnail of this video. It's
Yep.
something that we've talked about on the show quite a number of times. It's been there since the inception of the show, Phi. But is this team a fluke in the sense that, look, they've qualified as the first seeded team. They only have to win one more best of three to qualify for their fall final. Uh, but at the same time, we look at their open qualifier results and they've been struggling. They've been okay in the third one, but they have been knocked out by some mixed teams in the second and first. What do we really think about Astralis? Where do we land on these blast results and these open qualifier results in tandem with one another?
So okay, the one thing for the blast results is that they look like a completely different team altogether. Like, first things first, they're ignited, just individually speaking. Config and Blame have hard carried this team, but then Farley comes through with two of his best maps of 2022 as a whole. I mean, you see this Astralis versus Vitality game on your screen at the moment. Went into overtime, and boy, did he he came up with some real, tangible, impactful rounds for this Astralis team. That's why I'm saying maybe we shouldn't down on this Astralis too much. We've been spending this entire offseason completely bagging on them, but, well, maybe there's still some room to bag on them, though, Pally. I know these open qualifier results haven't really been all that for Astralis. They've lost again to another CIS mix for the second open qualifier in a row. As the time of recording this, they are currently running through the open qualifier number 3, but I mean, I'm going to need to see him qualify here if I really want to see, Astralis say, Astralis, okay, they're really here to play this season.
Yeah, those open qualifier results are obviously worrying. I think the loss against Aurora was all right. Like, it makes sense in context of, look, Zibnix has never played an open qualifier. According to Trav CS, he's saying that Zibnix has never played an open qualifier in his career because of all of the stuff that he's qualified previously through closed and whatnot. And then you have to think about Glaive and
For
how
sure.
he's barely played any closed qualifiers himself or open qualifiers himself. So playing through those long, arduous processes might be really taxing, and they might not have the tip top calls, and they might not have the tip top individual form themselves. And Aurora have some really sharp CIS individuals. They're a really young team, but that second qualifier was the one that I was a little bit more iffy on. That makes me try to really think about what's going on with the fall groups as well. But you take a look at what their route was. They lose their first best of one to NIP on Overpass, which I firmly think is one of NIP's best maps. I think they dropped the ball with the
Sure.
veto there, so you can make an excuse there. And then you go beyond that, they have a pretty easy time against OG to get that rep of a Mirage official. And then they go back and play Ancient against NIP. And there, look, I don't think NIP should ever be taking it to Ancient against Astralis. I think that's one of their best maps, if not their best maps. They're one of the best in the world just because of how much of a ruthless killing machine config is on that map. And then, as you were saying, that final group final, that's where I think that this Astralis lineup had something to say. Like Farley going absolutely nuclear at the tail end. I think it was like a crazy comeback. I don't actually remember what the actual final stats was. Yeah, 10-5
Yeah.
on the T side of Mirage, and then a 4-2 in the overtime situation. But Zibnix had a fantastic game in relativity to his previous stats, and Farley as well did very well. It wasn't the config and Blame F show throughout. And that game was pretty impressive to say the least. I think you have to give them props there. So it's still so odd with this Astralis lineup where I can't really pinpoint where I actually land on them. I'm still gonna have to be convinced because they don't have BO3 wins
Sure.
consistently. But until then, I think that you can at least say there is potential for them to at least win that one BO3 and qualify for the fall finals, because the results of the at the end of the day is a result, right? Fine.
Yeah, results are results, but, speaking of a team that was kind of gaining results, it's the team that, Astralis happened to beat. Call it a little bit of luck, but the guys over there, Vitality, have also just debuted their lineup in the same group as Astralis. Are you supposed to be happy with this debut of Spinks coming right on out, replacing that anchor player in Masuda? And, I think I think the general sentiment is that he performed pretty darn well. But Paladin, what is your take on this? Did Vitality come out with a good debut?
I think they still have work to do on their T sides. It looks like those have regressed, and that's to be expected just simply because look at the different map pool for Spinks. You could see on that T side of Inferno that Vitality played. He looked very, very discombobulated, and that's to be expected. But look, on the CT sides, this is one thing that I was expecting to happen, where they are just impenetrable. Spinks is an absolute rock, and there's absolutely no way to get through their defense. And somehow they can find their way through some of these BO1 wins, and it makes sense that they were second place in their group. I was expecting them to be first just because of the nature of best of ones, but in the best of threes, you can very much see their see a world where they just
Hmm.
batter their way through and at least get into the last chance stage just because of the firepower that's on this team. That was one thing that I was super on the fence about. I did a video about it previously where I hadn't necessarily come down on what side of Vitality that I wanted to appreciate. But at the end of the day, Phi, if their CT sides are absolutely nuclear, they can kind of fluke their way through with a couple of scrappy T rounds and make their way through, you know?
It's a fluke is everyone's favorite word on this NA podcast.
Of
That's what I was
course, of
telling.
course.
That's what I'm telling you. I think my eye
Not
test.
C9 though.
Yeah,
Not
oh
C9.
no, not at all. Not at all. The only non-fluke out there for all you you know, Britons or who might be in this chat. Not necessarily sure. Anyways, moving right on along though, because of course I think the one biggest thing is the eye test. The eye test looks so good. You can look at the stats all you want. 1.1 rating for Spinks. Oh, that was just like is a mediocre group performance. I think he definitely brought the games back on Inferno. There's no comeback if Spinks doesn't have the half that he did. So I'll give the props out to him. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think jury's still out, but so far so good for Vitality. We'll move it on along. We got to talk about G2 because that was another one that we didn't necessarily expect the best from them
Mhm.
out the gates, but even then, they came fourth in their group. They I believe lost to Liquid in their opening BO1, which we'll talk about in the best region. But
Mhm.
they also lost to G2 in a close 16-14 affair. So what do we actually take away from this? Because it was close games through both of their
Mhm.
Group B tribulations. But what can we really contextualize from just this small sample size?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things I want to highlight is I think one of the biggest worries that was already coming through when this roster was announced, and that was that Hooksy is not going to be performing at the high individual standard that I think Tier 1 Counter-Strike commands of him. Like some Danish IGLs, I mean, they do a lot of thinking, but it's always tough for them to frag out. And on this G2 team, you think they're already stacked with firepower, but they were sorely missing just the bare minimum status that Hooksy kind of commands. I think he had a couple of at least decently important rounds, but on the flip side of it, there's definitely some rounds that definitely cost G2. So there were that's already a big worrying factor is that Hooksy wasn't able to perform up to individual standards. And JKS, I think he has some time adjusting to roles, and the caveat is I think Hunter is in a really, really different role than he's used to on the T side specifically. Saw him lurking over in the Mariana Trench. So there's been a couple of like oddities here for this G2 esports team. I think their T side definitely needs some work coming together. It's going to be really down to the BO3s here, Paladin. That's what I'm going to leave it at.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of growing pains on their T sides regardless, and that's just to be expected. But look, the headline that HLTV put out saying that Hooksy doesn't have to individually have any form and they can win things still. Like, I don't buy that. One of the biggest issues that Alexi B had was also his individual form that dropped off a cliff.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I don't think it's gonna be just easy pickings, just straight out the gates. Let's see what they happen to show in the BO3s. But let's
Mhm.
wrap this up. We'll
For
probably hit
sure.
ENCE in the overtime, but we gotta just touch a little bit up on them big because they dropped the ball a little bit throughout their group. They had a couple opportunities to just at least get a better seeding that they did. 16-13 loss against Heroic in on Nuke in their opening round, and then
Mhm.
16-14 again in a loss on CT side Nuke of it 16-14. But
Yeah.
what do we actually contextualize from this five?
Well, I'm just going to chalk it up to them having an extraordinarily difficult group for them to go through. I mean, FaZe Clan and Heroic are no difficult opponents. And in fact, it turned out Heroic just came out of the gate swinging with Stown having a monster group stage for himself on that Heroic squad. He powered past big through this one. I'm not going to put too much on this loss here for Big. All things said, there's still a lot of time for them to grow a bit. They have the gauntlet stage to run through. They have themselves a guaranteed last chance. I believe it's the last chance qualifier for the fall final. They have at least that guarantee. So they have 2 BO3s in them for this gauntlet stage. I think they still have a little bit of a chance.
I'm hoping for the best from them. I mean, I like the Keto for Tizian move. It does add extra firepower.
For sure.
But again, you're going to have to chop and change some of these roles. And I believe Keto is supposed to be secondary calling for this team alongside Tapson. So there's going to be growing pains there. Again, it's just a lot of figuring things out. And as you've said before, this format does lend itself to kind of experimenting
For
and
sure.
understanding what the mistakes are early on so that these BO3s just have a little bit more impact in it. But as we said, let's keep moving it along. We do have a couple of exciting little things to talk about when it comes to the best region.
Yeah, first things first, though, we're just gonna move right past Paying Gaming, who, I think I'm just gonna contextualize this a little bit, Pally. They absolutely washed everyone in their open qualifier bracket. I'm not sure how many people even got double digits versus them. I had some critiques coming into this with Paying Gaming announcing their lineup as being, quote, the biggest Brazilian signing in recent history. And while I had some question marks about that one, Pally, I think they proved us all wrong here.
Dude, they looked really good. Like everything that I watched, it felt like you know, like in EU when you have a number one seed. Let's say let's ignore the Astralis anomaly. But
For
when you
sure.
do have number one seeds in those open qualifiers, they have this certain aura when they just march through these qualifiers and they just look unstoppable. We don't necessarily always have that in SA qualifiers per se,
For sure.
but they look like that was the team, like that was the team to fear. And that they were always going to be a cut above the rest of the competition in SA, even though on paper they shouldn't have necessarily been that way. But so far, it looks like they fit the identity that what PKL has been wanting for such a long time on this Pain squad. And perhaps that these players are young enough to kind of be malleable for this team and go further than they ever have, because they've had a lot of opportunities. They've had a lot of crazy upsets. They've had a lot of statement BO3 wins over top teams, but they haven't necessarily made that jump up over BO3 wins over EU teams.
Right.
And that's what I'm hoping to see if they can finally eclipse that of some of these like tier 1.5 teams, like those bigs of the world.
Yeah.
And if they have the ability to do so, look, man, Pain has always been a team that's been always a cut above. But if they can go beyond, that's what I'm looking forward to, and they've already shown potential that they could do it.
They just need to make it to these big events and then actually have the chance to upset. I don't think they've really gotten themselves out to these S tier events like the say your 0-0 Nation, who had a decent, all things said, a decent run at Cologne. So I think Pain Gaming, they just need a little bit more time. That's my opinion. But, I mean, recent results are telling me that they're looking like the best team in Brazil. That's just, that flat out could easily be the case. Zevi and Skulls coming through. Shout out to them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for Pain, but I'm also excited about Liquid and Blast because, I mean, they came in third, right? Or sorry, what am I saying? They came in second, correct?
Yes,
Right?
correct.
And I was just happy with Liquid again. I'm not gonna say that I'm ever gonna be disappointed in this team and the results. They did get blasted by Navi in the group final, but I think that was also one of the closest 16-4s that I've seen in a while. And I'll take that copium to the bank. Thank you very much. But in the B-roll that we're showing here, you can clearly see that this team is energized. They are so happy to play Pro CS again. Like you can see that core that usually was very deflated in Elige and NAF. Obviously, NAF doesn't necessarily show the most amount of emotion, but even he was smiling here or there. And they looked great. I like the BO1 win against G2. They looked like the better team by far. And then against Complexity, which was a tight 16-14, OC was looking like dominant in the head-to-head, in the sense that he was feeling so much more willing to play aggressive, willing to showcase the OC from Extra Salt that we've loved for so long, where he was like this prominent tier 2 North American opper, and we were finally seeing that transition to showcase himself in the tier 1 OC narrative, right? And having that opportunity is so exciting, because that's where OC does his best work, where he is has some fear about him to other tier 1 oppers. And if that can happen, then again, we have this core of this trio of fraggers that is going to be unstoppable. And their gauntlet to actually qualify for the fall finals looks pretty doable, all things said. And I'm excited to see whether or not they can actually do it, Phi.
Yeah, I think that would be such a huge step for this Liquid team to actually break through into the fall final and not have... I mean, I feel like this team has been relegated to showdowns over and over and over again. Of course, they've made it through the showdown every single time, but it's about time that Team Liquid finally take their spot here at the top of... at least closer to the top of EU Counter-Strike. So, moving on along, though, we have Complexity, our other NA brethren. They came through, and I'll say it here, they had their first positive series win in Europe in, I think, nearly their entire time there, outside of maybe a BO3 win over Heat. This team has finally done something. Pally, are they going to carry this momentum?
There's a lot of copium from EU fans saying that there wasn't any simple, but look, we've already seen through the results of this opening seeding phase that this Navi system is one that can't be messed with. Hedrick, although he made a ton of mistakes across the stage, still was able to bring Navi to the group final. And Phi, I think that this BO1 win, although it's just a BO1 win, although there wasn't any simple, it's Navi nonetheless, and they beat that system, and they looked very, very good while doing it. I watched back this demo. Hauser looked very comfortable. The system that Complexity has been touting for quite some time finally looked like it had some legs to it. Grim looked like he was finally back in the form that he was brought on to Liquid originally for. And man, I'm just so thrilled to see just signs of life from Complexity. That in and of itself brings me a lot of joy. I don't necessarily think that they'll be able to make it through their single elim bracket. They might be able to get through OG, but maybe they might be able to eke out a last chance victory. But other than that, it's going to be a turbulent task. But regardless, at least getting this BO1 win, getting through and progressing through some of these stages, that in and of itself is so exciting to me. We need a second NA team to provide results.
Finally, and Complexity could be the deal. But over at it feels like it's like the ugly duckling of North America at this rate. We're gonna talk about EG. It's the most blinged out duckling though, is the biggest thing, because they have, well, make it 4 teams now. But either way, not what we're here to talk about. But look, coming into Blast here, Paladin, are we really coming here to expect anything from this EG team? Like, they added in Hex. They're not playing with Automatic. Apparently, though, rumors are that Automatic will be in the main lineup coming this Thursday.
Okay.
So, Rush will be back to the States, and EG will actually have their star player. But is that going to make a difference, or are we just expecting the same old, same old?
I mean, they look decent against FaZe. They got 8 rounds. I think we talked about in the previous podcast that if they got double digits, we'd be happy. But yeah, there's not really much to expect.
They didn't get double digits.
Yeah, they didn't get there, but hey, they were close. They were close to the frighteningly low bar that we set for them. And that in and of itself is the most minuscule of wins, Phi. As the not acceptable crew is as small as it is, we still have to carry a little bit of a banner throughout and copium our way through certain stages of life. And this is one of them. They got absolutely blasted by Big though. So take that for what you will. Hex look okay.
Yeah, he was fine. I'm not gonna say that it was like an abysmal performance. I think, well, it's just, look, man. There's sometimes just the team just can't put the building blocks together and actually make something out of it. I think, like, individually speaking, yeah, they might be just fine, but there's a lot to fix out of this team. I'm not sure if it's just, bad luck. Is it a curse? Is it something that this EG team? I don't know. So I was talking with the EG, the side teams, practice squads, PA and Carpe Diem, and they said they had a slight amount of hope against them making a moderate run through the bracket. I believe their first opponent is NIP, if I get that correct. Yeah. Correct. Now, if they can beat out Rez somehow, they have a chance. But I don't want to look, dude. We're North. This is just North American Counter Strike. We live, we breathe copium, and I'm not sure how much our supplies are kind of running out here.
To me, I think a map win over NIP would be cool. I'm expecting them to actually do something in EPL and avoid last place. That is the bar that I've set for them. That is the inevitable goal I've set for them.
Mhm.
If they cannot come in, if they come in last place in their EPL group, I will be kind of like, okay, we're still at rock bottom, and we have not climbed out of the hole thus far. But until then, jury's still very disappointed in Evil Geniuses. Let's move on to the final little bit. It's only going to take a couple of seconds, anyways. But Apeks is coming to Frag 17. I know Phi, you probably will be there,
Yeah.
working with Frag for quite some time, and
Yeah.
getting to catch shocks might be exciting. I mean, I'm excited to see just a prominent set of EU players coming over to the States, like playing against these players. They're going to learn so much. It's such a boon for our players to kind of get shown the ropes. And even if they get schooled, hey, they get to learn a lot from these
Yeah.
BO1s and these little series in Philadelphia.
I'm sincerely worried for all the teams competing in Philadelphia because I think this team is just gonna nuke the whole tournament. Look, Apex Rebels, the academy team for this squad, came in second place. They came in second place, and I know some of the analysts that I was talking to at the event said, I mean, genuinely said they individually speaking, Apex Rebels were not even close to the level of NA players, but just tactically outplayed them in every single situation, and we're just positionally perfect for the Apex Rebels guys. Now, like now they're bringing out the big guns. Now they're bringing out players who've won majors, my guy. It's not gonna be pretty. It's gonna be fireworks. For probably Apex. Please, someone. I hope you MBG. You guys. I hope you guys stand a chance. MBG 12. For those who know, if you know, you know. Anyways, moving right on along. It's y'all's favorite segment. It's my favorite segment. It's probably yours. Paladin, I just have to ask you a question. Is this going to be your favorite segment? Is this always your favorite segment?
Yeah, I mean
Are you?
it's basically the inception of our podcast when we would try to like talk about this idea. NA or EU was the first thing, and it's like in that sense, it's like kind of our baby, and
Yes.
we kind of have to take care of it, and we have to love it a lot. And I hope you, the fans, love it as much as we do doing it.
All right, this is our brainchild. It's NA or EU. Welcome to it. Where we're gonna run through, give everything an answer. Is it NA or EU? NA doesn't mean anything condescending, nor does EU mean that it's good or bad or ugly. And we're actually moving through the open qualifiers, so we're seeing which teams took an L, or if they were NA, if they were EU. I'm not necessarily sure, Paladin. You can take it every which way you want to, and we're starting off this one off with Movistar Riders, who have still yet to qualify.
Movie star writers, dude, it's gonna be hard to integrate Martineza into tier one
Mhm.
inevitably. But the teams that they're losing to aren't necessarily teams that I expect them to lose to. You can give them a pass on some other like top 50 teams that are like just floating in the EU like just sphere. But they're losing to some mixes here or there. This is an NA. This is obviously NA. Like to me, it just sucks that they're like second seed and they're not able to actually get through this. But so far they're doing pretty good right now. I believe they're in a collision course in qualifier 3 to play against Heat for a BO3 qualifying spot. So that could be really difficult, but hey, it might actually be a banger of a match, Five. So
That sounds like a banger.
that's a silver lining.
That sounds like a banger match, and I definitely would tune into that. But so far, the qualifier run has been quite NA from Movistar Riders. I don't think there's any other way we can really put it here, Pally.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that is exciting is that at least Fnatic made it out in their run in the second open qualifier. I mean, they didn't actually make it through the first one. I think they dropped the ball in a really difficult bracket with the Falcons. But in this one, they took the first seed, so they did their job in that sense, which makes me quite happy that the basically all of the big teams are qualified for the RMR at this point. The only ones
Mhm.
being Astralis and Movistar, but Fnatic, they at least on paper they have some good firepower
Mhm.
to kind of carry them through these open qualifiers, and at least it paid dividends here to get through that and get the job done. They had a really tough BO3 against Havu. That one was tough to watch. I didn't enjoy watching it, but they got through. I think it was 28-26 on Nuke. And I was watching it with Trav, and I wanted to go to sleep, and I just couldn't. Yeah, EU, just because, hey, we got another great org to at least be at the RMR at the very least.
I think the biggest thing to take away from this open qualifier for Fnatic is that Fasher is definitely the worthwhile pickup for this team. Boy, did he carry them out of this qualifier. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And even then, like, the rest of this team has, I think, plenty of potential to gel together, but just individually raw skill, Fasher, you just need to have a god aimer to beat out all the CIS mixes, okay? I'm just saying, all right?
100%. Yeah.
They're just legion. There's an army of CIS mixes, and if you got one guy to cut through them all, that would be Fasher. That's an EU result for me. Congratulations over to Fnatic. Next things next, though. OG, what's going on with them? Now, okay, they bombed out of their blast group, they qualified. But, dude, that was not the cleanest qualification I've ever seen. I believe they nearly lost a map to Portuguese family, who are just I'm not no shame to Portuguese family, but I'm not sure what tier they're in. So
it's so weird with OG because, like, after the spring finals, they had just so much mediocrity, and this start of the season is not filling me with the best confidence. Look, I'm happy they've qualified for the RMR because I think it's unfair for some of these teams if they just don't qualify with the pedigree of the players that are on their squads. However, at the same time, oh my God, was it so close? And why the hell was it so close? And it should not ever be this close. And why? So I'm going to go with NA just because, look, OG, I picked Dexter to be one of the players for Stonks, and we'll recheck with it. And you didn't do that for me. And now I look like a bad analyst. So please do something in the last chance stage. I'm begging you.
there's something wrong with this team. It just doesn't.
I can't tell you what it is. I cannot tell you what it is.
There's just something, like, I feel like the players just haven't quite hit the tier 1 level that, an org like OG kind of commands. I don't see the same form out of FRAG, who is a great player and honestly delivered for them in the spring final, but this was just not his event. No, the blast groups were definitely not his event. Open qualifiers was not quite his event. I mean, Dexter's just performing fine, sure. Rest of the guys are performing fine, but this team as a unit, I'm not sure how long this is going to last. This RMR is going to be a real make-or-break moment for these players' careers. I'm going to go NA here just because it's just so shaky, you can't even decide.
Yeah, I'm hoping for the best for them. I mean, again, they managed to lock down Dexter, one of the biggest free agents that we had in the market, and I just want them to do something with it because I don't want that guy's prime to be wasted at any cost, because this guy has a lot to give. He's shown time and time again that he can carry a lot of squads, and I just want them to actually do some damage at the RMR. But let's talk about Astralis just a little bit more. They dropped the ball against Neon Rangers, I believe, is the team that they lost to, and so they couldn't even qualify for the actual like HLTV portion of the open qualifier.
They almost lost to Brandenburg Shooters, dude.
Yeah, that was the other thing. I think I was talking to Neokai about it. He casted a little bit of it, and it was just like he was so confused as to what he was watching. And
Pupcake styled on him.
Pupcake, yeah. Like, who is Pupcake? Who is he? And I mean, look, cool, but I honestly, this segment is a little bit more negative than the previous segment that we had, and I'm just gonna take this at the open qualifier face value, and it's pretty obvious where I'm gonna go with this one. It's obviously NA because, oh my God, you're like a 4-time major winning organization, and we are struggling through open qualifiers, and you've been number 1 seed for 3 open qualifiers, and we still haven't been able to get the job done, and it's very sad.
Astralis, please. Look, you guys look so good in your blast group. Okay, they're currently competing in Open Qualifier 3. I've already mentioned that so far in this podcast. But just do it here, and everyone will forget what happened. Nothing ever happened. Just qualify here. all I need to say on this one, Pally. On to the next, though. Entropic come through, and they are looking in a very weird spot. They've been in a weird spot, honestly, for these last couple of months. I don't think they've been in attendance for many of these Tier 1 tournaments, if I should check that correctly. Here for the, right? They just generally have not been at the top of the game. Admittedly, they will be in ESL Challenger Melbourne, but they're struggling in these qualifiers. They didn't even make the HLTV stage for qualifier number 2, again, falling. So this is just a really weird spot for a team that just inherently has a ton of skill.
It's so tough when you're a tier 2, tier 1.5 team where you have the potential to actually do well, and you just don't get the opportunities because you drop the ball on a couple close qualifiers, and the points that the EPT points just stop rolling in, and then it's just like, okay, now we have to dig ourselves out of a huge rut. But they're doing really well for themselves right now. I believe they have, yeah, they can actually very reasonably make it. They have in the open qualifier stage right now in number 3. They have to beat Tag, which I think they should get through. And then a winner of Sinners Namiga, and then a BO3 against Blue Jays, Budapest 5, Sangal, or Sashi, which is
That's
a very,
real.
very doable. Very doable situation. I still like, you look at the Melbourne results that they had.
For sure.
They went through Sprout, Heat, K23, and they had a very close BO3 loss against Heat, but they qualified for Melbourne. And EU qualifiers for ESL Challenger events are brutal, and I always have to give credit to them. So I'm gonna go with EU just because, look, they're in a state where they can actually qualify, and I want to see Mir actually debut on LAN with this team because I actually think that this has potential to eclipse that of its previous iteration.
There's something just so I mean, look, you have Mir, but the biggest problem with this team at the moment is, I mean, I'm not sure why they picked off Lackey off this lineup, to be honest. Lackey was just, generally speaking, a great player. Just eye test wise, individually speaking wise, the roles he was playing for this team, Lackey was doing his roles just fine for this team. And now they're struggling with arguably one of the biggest CIS fraggers in recent years. So going into this, we're looking at a really, really weird Entropic team that maybe might want to be backtracking on this Mir move in just a bit. They're probably going to qualify for the RMR, as you said already here, Pally, but I'm gonna move over towards the NA side of this. Entropic have some things they need to work on.
Yeah, I mean, Lackey's at the RMR right now, and Tropic isn't. So what does
Yeah.
that say about the state of things, right? Yeah, that's a
Aurora,
good point.
baby.
But we'll touch upon one quick one right before we go.
For
The
sure.
Brazil qualifiers are also happening actually right now as we speak. The last 2 BO3s are happening.
Mhm.
I think 9Z have made it through over Kase Esports. And then Oplano and Fluxo are in a really heated final best of 3. And beyond that, we have all of the big teams to actually qualify, make it through. MIBR, 00 Nation, and
Pain.
Pain, right? We obviously talked about them.
Right.
So I have to say EU here from me personally because all the big SA teams are through. We're gonna have an exciting America's RMR. This is gonna be one of the more cutthroat ones in comparison to that one in Antwerp.
Yep. I'm gonna say NA just because they're from NA. Good job, guys. You guys did it. Moving right on along, though, because we're going to go ahead over to our Through the Looking Glass segment where we get to choose any miscellaneous topic that we want to. And, folks, this episode, it's our Blast Prediction. So if you guys love predicting things, don't worry. Don't we have the setup for you. Through the Looking Glass got you covered. Let's go ahead. We're talking about the gauntlet here. We're talking about the whole bracket. We're going to see who's going to make it. And first things first, let's go ahead and jump into, I believe, complexities side of. Fine, we should be up in. Okay, of course I just muted myself. Boy, we're all muted. Ha ha ha! Get owned, folks.
Did we get the other segment? You know what? I mean, Brazil shouldn't get any time to be heard from us.
It's all right. We're fine. We're back.
Best
It's a
treatment.
podcast. It's a podcast, but you guys just got 30 seconds of Zen. So just enjoy the moment as we're gonna be jumping into our bracket. Yes.
Okay. OG Cole. I think this is a really weird one because again, OG was fourth seed and Cole was third. And it didn't actually like on paper, Cole's results were better, like they look better, and OG's weren't. But I think, man, I'm just gonna go with OG. I think I'm just gonna go with OG.
Oh,
I know, it's not fun,
I'll take an
but
OG.
I'm the party pooper.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, OG did. I mean, just generally caliber wise, OG are the better team. There's no way else to phrase it. I want to believe in the Cole dream though. So you know what? I'll run it. I'll run with Cole for a little bit. No matter who wins this game though, Paladin, are you gonna tell me that one of these teams are gonna be beating FaZe Clan? Um, tell me otherwise. I'm saying it might be Cole
Oh
versus
yeah.
FaZe. Oh yeah, you think OG's gonna be FaZe?
Oh my god, no. I
Okay.
mean, they're by and large the best team in the world, obviously. But the game against Heroic was like, it was kind of scary. But I don't think. I mean, look, I think
Heroic
FaZe
was on
had
fire,
not.
dude.
Yeah, FaZe had quite the uphill battle. Yabi looked very, very good. I think that was his best game on Heroic to date.
Mhm.
And if that's happening, then they're back to having an absolutely stacked lineup in terms of firepower. People are still sleeping on the individuals that are on this team. Stan and Yabi and Tessus is still a very, very threatening trio of fraggers. And I think you can discount a little bit of FaZe's bad second showing, but they should get through and they should make it against Astralis.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure that FaZe should make it past Astralis, but I think that will definitely be a proving game for Astralis. As a team, look, we've gotten a couple BO1s for them. We've gotten a couple. I mean, it's funny to say that a 1.4 rated game is a life game from Farley, but yes,
Yeah.
that is literally a life game from Farley. It's one of his top 10 maps he's played in 2022. Um, was that one against Vitality? I believe actually he was top 5, if I might get that correct. There are a couple other BO1s that might be up there, but there's look, Astralis, I think there's a chance. I don't think they're going to be FaZe, but there's definitely a chance they can qualify for the spring finals. I think it's not on Farley's form, but it is on BlameF and Config looking pretty solid. So FaZe are going to beat them, that's for sure, but we'll see what they have to do in the last chance qualifier, depending on who they play against. On to this next up-and-coming bracket, though, here, Pally. Let's see if I can get you right on to it for that matter. Also, one thing really quickly before I mute you all again. There we go. On to our second bracket, folks. Welcome to G2 Vitality and Big and Navi. What a stacked gauntlet bracket we have here.
This one's brutal. This one's so brutal. I mean, G2 big in and of itself. Look, it might not seem like it's going to be a close game, like on paper, but it is going to be a close game. I can
Mhm.
guarantee you that there's not a favorite in that game. I think Big still like they came fourth in their group, but they were so close to beating Heroic both times. They did smack around EG, and so it shows that they can take care of business if they are playing worse opposition. I think that there is still firepower on this team. I think they still have a pretty good game plan. If
Mhm.
G2 don't have a game plan, I think they might be caught in hot water. You know what? I'm actually going to be controversial here. I'm going to say Big wins this. I'm a Maui believer.
I think you know what, Paladin, your take is not as hot as you think. By the way, because I think Big are actually going to win this too. It's a BO3. They have a real established map pool, and G2 have always struggled with bringing in new IGLs. Let's not lie here, Pally. I believe last time they brought in Alexi B at the start of this year. I mean, look, we're talking going back to the spring groups and about 7 months ago. And Alexi B came off the starting block super weak. Was a big problem. So, for me, I don't think G2 have developed a map pool enough. They haven't proved enough to show that their map pool is really diverse and in depth. I'm gonna go with Big here, and I think crazy as that is, the quote unquote world's best CS:GO team is going to be going out in last place here at the group stage.
Yeah, I think that is a bit wild to see, but they kind of dug their own grave with the
Hmm.
playoffs being secured in fourth seed by Nico. But anyways, if we actually go under the assumption that Big makes it through, they'd go up against Vitality, which is another BO3 that would be really exciting. And I think that obviously this side of the bracket this bracket is the most exciting one because
Mhm.
Big Vitality is again another pretty difficult one to think to predict, all things considered. But I think you have to give the props to the firepower like on Vitality this time around.
For sure.
It's weird that I'd say that with that I wouldn't say that with G2, but I would say that with Vitality. But
Mhm.
the problem is that they've always had issues with their communication, but they were still able to make deep runs. But G2 wasn't, right? So
Yeah.
like I think to me, Zywu is playing insane so far. Spinks has shown that he's
Yes.
he's doing very well for himself. And then you have just a pop up performance from Magis Kira there. And hey, you got yourself a core that's kicking really strongly.
Mhm.
Their map pool might not be the strongest right now; it's a bit flimsy, but I think that they should be able to get at least a BO3 win over Big. I'll have them face off against Navi in the final qualification game before the last chance.
I think we're gonna go on a similar pipeline here because I also think this new Vitality. You know, we hyped up Spinks a lot, but we also forget to talk about Zywu and talk about him being in superstar form right now. For this player who's, you know, he's been always great. That's, I think no one has ever denied that he's ever been a bad player, but he's always been great individually, and now he's back on like superstar footing. I believe he's the top rated player in all of the Blast groups right now. If I could get that correct, I should get that correct.
I believe you're correct. That sounds right.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
that
Yep,
is.
that is. Look at me, right on the money, folks. Are they
Heck
gonna
yeah.
beat Nodus Vincer? That's gonna be a sick game because it's not
And
Zywu versus Simple anymore, man. It's Zywu versus Headtrick.
so I heard rumors that Simple is actually coming back for this game. I don't know if I'm actually right on that or not. But I'll go under the assumption that it is head trick. And if it is, hey, this is actually a pretty even
Right,
game.
exactly. Simple, right. Simple actually was coming back, right? He is coming back for this for the Gauntlet stage. I
Yeah, and I mean, if he's coming back, then I think it's a
Sorry
no
guys.
brainer on how
Sorry
this is ending.
guys. Sorry guys.
But if not, if there's something that happens again and he doesn't, then
Mhm.
maybe you can give the edge over to Vitality. But look, man, Perfecto is even having an amazing game. I'm the biggest Perfecto enjoyer on planet Earth.
Mhm.
He made my career, honestly. With my YouTube channel. But beyond that, this guy's an absolute like stud, and
Mhm.
he's been doing very well for them. So if he's doing well for this team, that could be also just a huge boon. And if Simple comes back, it's kind of just GG in my eyes.
Yeah, look, even Electronic was having some great performances, so can't lie about that. All right, we're gonna go muted for about half a second. Get ready for this. 3, 2. Didn't even hear me get to say 1 because we're back in it. Welcome to our third part of the Gauntlet stage here. NIP taking on EG, Liquid and Heroic, awaiting the winner of potentially these. Look, how do I say this? Do we even talk about the first matchup? No.
If a map is won by the North American side of Evil Geniuses,
Double
I
digits,
will be
dude.
a
Double
happy man.
digits. I'm happy. We got him. EU
Yeah.
on a downfall. It's over for EU. Did you get double
Those of you
digits?
praying for my downfall, you've
You-
lost.
Yeah, there you go. Because if
Um,
we lose, we're still winning.
Exactly. I mean, look, I think NIP still looked very good.
Mhm.
Even though they got the third seed, they had a pretty tough group. Just with the caliber of how the other teams were playing in their group. But Rez was still fantastic. There should be no reason why they don't actually make it through. NIP should be comfortably making it through. But that NIP Liquid game, that's a really, really exciting one. I'm interested to see what you actually want to pick up here, Phi.
Yeah, that's going to be a really interesting game. Again, though, NIP still just mediocrity is still just NIP's name. I don't think they've changed any further from that brand. I think Rez still looked great so far in this one, as we do want to get this moving just a little bit. But yeah, Rez still looked fine, but the rest of the team is just, they're missing the superstar. I think that's just, when you look at this NIP team on paper, Rez is a fantastic player. Hamp is a fantastic player. Brolan, a great player. Yeah, I mean, they have the pieces, right? I mean, but there's no superstar. There's no Zywu. There's no Yakinder for this team.
No
Or
device.
yeah, there's no
Right.
device. Hey, if you're trying to sell him for 6 figures, then well,
After buying him for 7.
yeah.
You're doing something right, NIP.
Yeah,
Losing money. Anyways, I think the
I
problem
I
that I
like Liquid
have,
here.
yeah, the problem here is I just think when I think about the map pool as well, it just feels like I kind of edge Liquid on a lot of these. Like Ancient, I think I could take Liquid. I think I could take them in Inferno as well.
Mhm.
Actually, Inferno might be a little bit of a toss up. There's a possibility that NIP could take that. But then you go down the row of like their other maps. It just feels like I'd edge Liquid 9 times out of 10. They have the Vertigo card to also play, which I don't think NIP is very good on.
Yeah.
So I think that I'm gonna take Liquid just purely because I think they'll win the op battle over Esatag. I think they have a better map pool, and I just think they have better overall individuals at this tournament right now. And I think that they will become a better team
Mhm.
as far as rankings are concerned. I think that they should be going up against Heroic, that faded EPL rematch.
For what it's worth though here, Paladin, I think Heroic are gonna thrash whoever wins this. I think Heroic are just on fire at the moment. And so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to see this version of Heroic show up. They're a very entertaining team to watch. Stown is actually like genuinely right now, Stown is the best Danish player.
He was amazing. I mean, Stalin was just absolutely lights out throughout the group stage. There were a couple insane moments from him that we were actually watching live while we were prepping the show. We were watching some of the heroic big games, and he was having some just insane highlights throughout. I have high expectations for heroic at this point. They're also always going to be the group stage gods. So
Yeah.
I feel like we've established this. Cologne is simply an anomaly, and I think that has completely shifted how people consider Heroic as a team. They
Hmm.
should take care of Liquid. If they don't, NA on top, suck it, everybody. And I'll be very happy. But
Yeah.
the expectation is Heroic should go through here.
All right. Well, we're going to move on to one of our final segments of the show. It's going to go ahead and be Stonks, folks. Place your bets, place your investments, because we already have, and I'll give you a spoiler here. It didn't turn out super well here, Paladin. As we're running down to the tail end of this, I'll add an extra minute just for good measure, because we love Stonks. And that is, let's go ahead and check into last week, all right? Look, guys, we never told you that we were like, where we are in a position of authority here, all right, Paladin. But Dexter and Hunter were our last week's pick. I'm not gonna say. Okay, Hunter had to adjust to his Hunter was doing some weird stuff, man.
Let's
All
pull
right.
out the copium. Let's get the excuses underway.
I I will
I mean,
not take accountability for this. It's not my
no,
fault.
it's so funny, dude. They both come in fourth seeds as fourth seeds, and it didn't matter what these guys did. It still looks very bad on our reps. I am not an analyst for as far as it's concerned for
Dexter played
episode
fine.
5.
Dexter played
Uh,
fine. You're fine, dude. You're fine, dude. I have some talking to do. It's the problem here, Pally.
I I'm kind of just I feel disappointed in us as a whole. Like it's like we kind of like dug through all these players and we're like, yeah, these are safe. We're not taking risks here. But boy, were we wrong.
Well, I mean, okay, they didn't completely bottom out. Like they
No,
weren't like
they
triple negative.
themselves didn't bottom out. To be
No,
fair,
but the teams
um,
definitely didn't turn up. I know Dexter had, I mean, across the two maps, he was like a 1.2 rating average, which is not
he was
like,
decent. Yeah,
I mean, decent, even though OG, barely scraped out double digits against Vitality. Didn't really put up much of a fight against Astralis. Hunter, on the other hand, just looked out of his depth, in my opinion. CT side, fine. We're talking about these G2T sides, though. They were just looking super, super weird. So enough about last week. We'll forget about that one in the past. Pally, who did you pick for this week's gauntlet stage here at Blast?
no way this can go wrong. I'm gonna pick Rez here. I think R Easy is NIP's only superstar. He had some absolutely phenomenal games. I've always loved watching Rez play a lot of different maps. I think particularly Overpass and Inferno are my favorites to watch this guy just do work. He's always been a superstar in some capacity or another, but he hard carried them through a lot of the BO1s. Regardless of the actual results, I think he showed a lot of good signs. You need this guy to be online if you want NIP to get results. And if you want them to get through the gauntlet in some way, shape, or form, if you want them to at least have a chance at that last chance qualifier, you got to have Res online, and I think that he's going to be able to do it. It's only
Yeah,
a couple of best of threes to do it.
yeah. I mean, a couple of best of threes. I know we kind of favor Liquid against that potential matchup, but I think that one can definitely go either way. I have my shoutouts to Res, and despite that, if they beat EG, they'll have a chance in the last chance qualifier. Is a big deal for those guys. So I think Res will still have the opportunity to play a couple BO3s, and kind of prove his worth. For myself, folks, dude, there's like been too much copium this one. I'm just gonna kind of let it be and let this one speak for itself. All right, Halzer coming in with a 1.1 rating so far at the Blast groups. I mean, he was looking all right. I think just generally said, he's what Complexity needs. He fits the bill. He's what's on their menu or what they've ordered or all that good stuff. I think Halzer has actually turned out to be a good fit for this team as he begins to develop a little bit more. And get to gel with some of these players. He's slowly becoming the win condition that Complexity need. They're such an op-centric team, and having such a great opper to go with it as well. Also having an amazing opening success rate, despite, kind of getting beat down by a couple of teams. He was 20 for 8 in opening kills, which is pretty darn solid. So, thank you. I am indebted to the country of Norway.
Oh, dude, Halsberg, look, I think it was super necessary to have a change like this happen, and he's hitting every shot that he actually needs to. And that is, I think, inherently just a super important thing for this Complexity squad. They just need an output of more frags because objectively, I think that their system is still pretty decent. And I think that a lot of the results are predicated on getting through some of these close situations, and you need a player that can do that. And Halsik was able to do that
Mhm.
pretty consistently. I've been happy what he's been doing on the bigger stages. People are telling me that this was a bad move because there were better offers on the market, but
Sure.
I think financially this made the most sense. This guy is driven. He has enough energy to prop up a lot of these players who need motivation. And you see how re-energized this Complexity roster is. It makes me so excited that Halzerk's here to play. I think this is a fantastic pick, Phi. This is a
Yeah.
great pick.
Let's go. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and jump in towards overtime, folks. So we're going to be able to close out the show with the 3 minutes that we do have. We didn't really get to touch base on ENCE, and them adding SunPayus and Valde. That's official. We were kind of like talking a little bit about it in the previous episode, but is this going to turn around ENCE? I mean, dude, is for a team that's been struggling to get trophies, is this going to bring it to them?
So we've talked about the Senpai's move a lot. I'm not going to touch too much upon that. You can check out the other videos on my YouTube channel. But um, the Valde move, we didn't actually get to talk about that. I think we like barely scraped by. But the
Mhm.
thing about Valde is to me, I think this move is actually really sick because look, you're missing Spinks, and so what is something that he actually didn't have that Valde brings to the table? Like if, in terms of identity, how are you chopping and changing? Well, he didn't necessarily have the utmost synergy with Snappy in the sense that they haven't played together before that team, right?
Yeah.
But another thing is the Valde also has a shitload of experience. Oh my
Mhm.
god, he has so much experience.
Mhm.
So those two things could be a huge boon to players like SunPayus and players like Diha, who haven't necessarily played at the top level of the game for longer periods of time. And I think that that could be super important to bringing them up to the next level. And I think that that's why I think this could be awesome. Obviously, the output of frags is probably going to be lower if I had to be a betting
For
man.
sure.
It's probably going to be lower, but at the same time, I don't think the drop off is going to be insane as compared to other potential candidates that they had. I think Valley's been around the scene for so long that he knows the game. He's kept up with the scene for quite some time. There's going to be a little bit of growing pains initially, but I
Mhm.
think that this Valde move could work out for the better.
I think for adding in Valde is I mean I agree with the Senpaius move. I love the Senpaius move. I think he's a playmaking op that right now ENCE definitely needed, and I think that's what's had them eluding titles is having a playmaking opper. Hades is fine, but Hades is a very laid back passive opper, and they have a new tool in their arsenal that
Hmm.
the tacticians over at ENCE definitely can use. Very powerful one. So that'll be an interesting pickup. But Valde being super experienced, and I don't think he's ever been a bad player in his career. I don't think he's ever been a superstar, but he's always been an amazing role player, whatever team he's played on, be it North and be it OG. I think he was the long-standing just rocks of those teams, and getting another one of those players and allowing, I think, more space to some people who can definitely be mad fraggers, like Madden and Deha on this ENCE team. Those riflers can be freed up, and you can have a better supportive element in the form of Valde. I like it. I like this move a lot, and I'm super excited to see what ENCE can do. This is going to bring it to the end of the show, though, Paladin, because overtime has just clocked on out. Anything else you want to say before we check out on NA's podcast, episode number 6?
Ah, dude, this gauntlet stage is gonna be fun as hell. I mean, this is what I've been waiting for, the real meat and potatoes of the group stage. We got open qualifiers to probably end before the next week that we actually get to have our next episode, with 6 more spots on the way. You know, ESL Challenger Melbourne's around the corner. Like, there is just so much goodness. Like, you'll see us on the playoff stage for CCT. That'll
For sure.
be super exciting. We've got a lot of good things cooking. As far as our channels are concerned, our duo is concerned, and in just CS in general, there's a lot of good stuff on the horizon. I am excited. Tune into youtube.com/Paladins Alliance if you just so happen to miss the entire hour of the show.
For sure. So wherever you guys are, don't forget to hit us up on Twitter. That is at PhyCast and at DatPaladin. And on that note, we're gonna be going ahead and checking out on the podcast. This has been NA episode 6. Thank you guys so much for watching. Follow us wherever you want. Subscribe to Paladin's YouTube channel. Follow us on twitch.tv/PhyY. All that good stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.